For most of us, the word siege conjures images from movies. Flaming arrows streaking through the night sky, soldiers storming castle walls, boiling oil raining down on desperate invaders. But history tells a different story. What was a medieval siege really like? Behind the walls and beneath the banners, sieges were not just battles. They were tests of endurance, of hunger, disease, and sheer willpower. A medieval siege could last not days or weeks, but months, sometimes even years. And for those trapped inside, there was no way out. Imagine standing on a castle wall at dusk. Torches flicker in the shadow of a massive wooden tower, creaking on wheels. Outside, the besieging army has been patient for weeks, encircled in camps filled with ladders, catapults, and soldiers. Inside the walls, people whisper prayers and ration bread. In the distance, an axe cracks on the wood of a trebuchet. Siege warfare was grim and slow. Attacking armies would blockade a fortress for months or even years, waiting to starve it out. Hunger and desperation set in quickly. Chroniclers of the First Crusade recorded a shocking scene. After the city of Ma'ara fell, some crusaders cut the flesh of dead bodies into strips and cooked them for eating. A papal letter from 1099 even reports Christian soldiers confessing they could scarcely refrain from eating human flesh. As the people now ate the putrid bodies of the slain. This was the dark extreme of siege starvation, a gut-wrenching reality that turned foes into food. Even before such horrors, ordinary sieges delivered terror. Roaring arrows and boulders would smash and rain fire. Our story begins not on a battlefield, but at a fortress gate by night, the beginning of an ordeal that would test courage, cruelty, and endurance in equal measure. In the morning light, the attackers reveal their engines of war. Massive trebuchets and catapults emerge, some laden with stones or even diseased animal carcasses. These machines were behemoths. A well-built counterweight trebuchet, weighing many tons, could hurl a 6,100 kilo stone hundreds of meters. Archaeologists at Kenilworth Castle later unearthed siege shot dated to 1266, ranging from 1 kilowatt pebbles up to a 105 kilowatt stone. Ammunition for precisely these engines. Pushed into place on wooden wheels, trebuchets thunder and shake the ground as they launch. To cross the moat and reach the walls, attackers also rolled out wooden siege towers, giant mobile bunkers often as tall as a house. Packed with archers and crossbowmen, these towers were rolled against the curtain walls so troops could pour onto the ramparts. But building such a tower took weeks or even months. The wood was soaked and draped in hides to resist fire, because defenders loosed Greek fire, flaming arrows, or pots of burning tar at any tower below. As historian Nicholas Morton notes, the Crusaders' lumbering towers often became prey to Greek fire and other incendiaries as soon as they neared the walls. Often the only alternative was to sit back and blockade, cut off all water and food, encircle the castle with siege lines, and wait for the garrison to starve. Some attackers trained their wheels and ropes on specific weak points. Siege engineers began massive arrow or rock barrages to sweep defenders from the battlements. Only then could miners be sent underneath. Tunnelers would dig below the stone walls to collapse them with explosives or fire. This tactic, a favorite of Turkish and Mongol armies, was devastatingly fast when successful. In one famous case, Saladin's engineers undermined Tiberias in 1187 so quickly that the outer walls fell in a single night, forcing defenders to flee or die. In short, the attacker's toolbox was brutal, but often slow. By the time a siege tower was ready, a relief army might arrive, or the machine itself could be torched. Siegecraft was a race of engineering and endurance. From the battlements, defenders poured boiling liquids and missiles back down into the fray. They hoisted machicolations and murder holes between the battlements to drop anything at hand onto enemies below. Hollywood loves the image of boiling oil, but real medieval defenders usually had other supplies. Oil was too precious, but boiling water or sand were common alternatives. Imagine kerosene-like grease, or even hot sand trickling from above, enough to blind and scald an attacker in armor. Hundreds of archers and crossbowmen pepper the area with arrows and quarrels. Chains of defenders pass up rocks, burning logs, or jars of lime, which blindingly plastered the face. As siege machines rattle and smoke rises, psychological warfare takes hold. Attackers sometimes flung corpses or body parts over walls. Catapults lobbed dead animals or plague victims' bodies to spread disease and terror. Jean-Pascal Zanders notes that before the 14th century, the common payload for siege engines was decapitated heads. Chroniclers mention adversaries tossing severed heads into a city to horrify the defenders. The very ground before the gate could be slick with blood, excrement or offal, a medieval kill zone to slow an assault. All around, the shock of seeing one's friends crushed under stones, or worst of all, the sight of human remains raining in, worked on the mind as much as the body. Inside the walls, life becomes a grim routine of fear and starvation. By day 3 or 30, or even 300, defenders count their stores. In the famous 1266 siege of Kenilworth, more than 1,200 souls held out with months' worth of food stockpiled in the castle. Barrels of grain and meat were guarded as prized treasure. But every day, that stock dwindles. Garden plots become latrines. Animals are slaughtered. Then, leather belts and boots are boiled for soup. Livestock and pets vanish first. Then soldiers and civilians learn the taste of bark and roots. Medieval cities under long siege are historical benchmarks of suffering. Sieges can often be decided by starvation, thirst, or disease, notes military historians, and this could take many months or even years depending on the fortress's supplies. All the while, illnesses breed in tight quarters. Lice multiply, wells run low and fouled, dysentery and scurvy sweep through the starving population. In Kenilworth, 172 days in, Prince Edward's assault hadn't yet breached the walls, but a savage plague of dysentery had broken the garrison. Chroniclers record that by surrender time, only 2 days' worth of food remained, and most defenders were dying of disease. Children's cries echo with hunger. Elders whisper of relief armies that never came. Every night is haunted by the day's horrors, the groans of the wounded, the march of skeletal faces. The castle, once a home, now feels like a tomb slowly sealing shut. Medieval sieges blended horror with the techniques of the age. Many popular images of siege warfare are exaggerations. For example, boiling oil was legendary, but virtually unheard of in reality. Water and sand were more practical and cheap. Machicolations did exist on every castle, so defenders simply used whatever hot liquid or stones were at hand to repel flames or ladders. Still, some acts were meant to shock. Chroniclers of the First Crusade explicitly mention cannibalism not as myth, but as a grim reality. After capturing Maera, the Crusaders admitted that hunger so weakened us that they ate the flesh of fallen enemies. This was not an unspoken rumor. It was written in eyewitness letters. Siege warfare routinely suspended normal morals. A city that defied a conqueror could be sacked completely, with no quarter for residents. In practice, this often meant trade of women and children into slavery, or worse, whole towns wiped out, once the walls finally fell. Yet even as death loomed, grim humor could survive. In the 13th century, the defenders of Acre dropped thousands of stone shot on the besiegers like a rain of dents. At Kenilworth, the king's stone projectiles were said to clash in the air with defenders' weapons, a bizarre mid-air battle of missiles. And on occasion, relief came. Smoke on the horizon of friendly banners could spark sudden hope. But more often, sieges taught that time was the deadliest engine of all. As food runs out and corpses stack, negotiation begins. Surrender might be on the table once the defenders know relief is truly gone. In Kenilworth, Henry III even offered his enemies terms: a piece called the Dictum of Kenilworth. But the starving garrison rejected them out of pride. Only when despair fully set in did the castle capitulate. On 14th of December 1266, after 172 days under constant assault, the rebels finally yielded. 2 days of food were all that remained. Only a few hundred of the original 1,200 defenders walked out alive, gaunt and broken. It was one of the longest sieges in English medieval history. Many shorter sieges never made the history books. A week, a month, a year. For defenders, it was still an eternity. In each case, victory meant either storming the walls at great cost or waiting until hunger and disease did the work of the besieger.